I'm joined now by the Times columnist Fraser Nelson, who has questions about how credible the economics of this are, but also says it's a huge political risk for reform as well. Hello, Fraser.
There you go.
Thanks for being here. Let's start with the money. Reform says it's going to save £21 billion a year by its fifth year to stop foreign nationals claiming benefits. Labour says the vast majority of migrants have no access to benefits. Who's right?
Well, if you believe Reform's figures, they're both right. The vast majority of foreign nationals have got no migrants. If you rock up in this country, you get given a visa. You get given what's called no recourse to public funds. That means you can't claim welfare. If you want to claim welfare, you need indefinite leave to remain. Now, you can get this if you stand for 5 years and good conduct and all the rest of it. But once you get ILR, it's a very coveted status. It's very easy to become a passport holder, 96% approval rate. So what Reform is talking about is foreign nationals who are currently claiming benefits who do not have a UK passport. By and large, that's those who've chosen not to get one. They could get it like that if they wanted. Now, why haven't they? Because the vast majority are EU nationals. That's who we're talking about here. Now, EU nationals are given full welfare rights in our country for a simple reason that Brits abroad, all 1.3 million of them, have got full welfare rights in those countries. It's a reciprocal deal. So what Reform is saying is it wants to end this reciprocal deal. It will save money. Now, of course, what we don't know is, well, why wouldn't these guys just apply for a passport right now? You can if you want to. Of course you could. There's so many flaws in this, it's almost not worth going into. But the other question is, what would then happen to all of the Brits living abroad? So there will be huge costs which aren't factored in. But the big change here, which they haven't mentioned, where he's going to get most of his money from, is abolishing PIP. Disability payment.
We'll come to PIP in a moment, but on that subject of people with settled status, whether they're EU citizens or, well, I guess they are EU citizens, I guess what's the sort of the worst case scenario here, which is also the likely case scenario, is that people in this country who are getting these benefits, they immediately just apply for and get a British passport, whereas meanwhile their equivalents in Europe just come back.
Well, I don't know, maybe the equivalent in Europe might be getting a passport as well. I don't know. I mean, my wife is an EU citizen, a Swedish citizen. She applied, got a British passport. She's very proud of it. Sure, you've got to sit a few tests, but it's quite easy to do. So this is the problem. I can't quite work out how Reforms would do, given that most of the people it's talking about are one form away from a British passport, which they have a 96% chance of getting.
They say they're confident they can just reach a better deal with Europe.
Yes, a lot of work is being done by that sentence. I mean, we're already seeing that Sweden is about to kick away. A British person in a care home right now is being deported by Sweden. You know, these are difficult situations here. By the way, that's not... I mean, Robert Jenrick is right to say that there need to be some reforms, and there are some small groups. I think there's about 700,000 people he's talking about who aren't EU citizens, who do have indefinite leave to remain, but that's not going to save them 20 billion quid.
Sure. OK, well, look, this is part of a 50-page plan that's supposed to save altogether £50 billion a year. A big part of this, as you said, is replacing the disability payment system, PIP. You've been a big critic of that system, generally.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about it, and tell us about what it does and what it means.
Well, this is why Reform does deserve credit. The explosion in sickness benefit is one of the biggest problems in British public life. It's leading to a huge bill, it's leading to welfare dependency, massive problems. Now, people have known this for a long, long time, but they haven't reformed it because every time they try to, they get huge outcry, as Labour found out when it tried to reform PIP. Just shave it off relatively small amount. There was a massive Labour backbench rebellion because these MPs worked out that there are more PIP claimants in their constituency than the size of their majority. So politically, it's very difficult to do. But you'd think of all the parties it's difficult for, Reform should be number one, because their vote is strongest where the PIP claims are heaviest. Welfare dependency is the number one indicator of Reform votes. Take Clacton, for example. You can see why Jenrick's policy wasn't announced this time last week. If it was, then Farage would have 10,000 PIP claimants in Clacton. 10,000. A third of whom are claiming PIP for mental health problems, which Jenrick says shouldn't happen. He said it doesn't make sense. Now, of course, I would go along with a lot of that, but it's a very difficult thing to sell politically. This isn't what's clear to me. Could Farage have won the Clacton by-election by saying that 3,000 people in his constituency who are currently claiming PIP for mental health reasons are no longer going to do so? Could Richard Tice do so? He's got something like 10,500 PIP claimants in his Skegness constituency. Could he fight that again, telling all of his target voters he's going to take away their PIP? So this is politically very brave. I'm just not quite clear whether it's been fought through or not, and already the backlash is beginning.
I mean, if you've spotted this, one would assume that Reform has spotted this. Maybe it's just extremely brave that they're doing what they think is right, even though it may hurt their own chances.
And let's give Robert Jenrick the benefit of the doubt. This has always been the Reform conundrum in welfare. The Reform voters will tell you they think welfare needs to change, but when you look at it, they're very likely to be having a health problem themselves or claiming it themselves. So is it now time just to say to the voters, look, we're sorry, this is going to have to happen. Yes, we're going to take away your mental health PIP support. We know it's a lifeline worth $4,500 tax-free to you, but a lot of you don't need it and it's going to come away. Now, perhaps Jenrick is using this foreign national thing as a distraction from the real and substantive point. Maybe Reform is going to be the first political party in Britain to really break the omerta and to say, we cannot afford this anymore. Perhaps Burnham won't even attack him, because perhaps Burnham will think this now gives him permission to reform PIP in the same way. So it could well be that this isn't a mistake. This is deliberate and very brave of Robert Jenrick. But then again, it could just be a mistake.
Speaking about this earlier on the show, Phil Tinline, the historian and political commentator, he basically he made the point that this just it highlights basically the schism, the divide in Reform. The Reform has always been this sort of uneasy coalition between your red trousered millionaires and benefit claimants, and this is a point where you really see sort of one side of Reform acting to the disadvantage of the other.
Yes, and of course some Reform strategists will tell you that their voters aren't the benefit claimants. Their voters are the workers in these heavily benefit to claimant areas who are really annoyed about their neighbour who's not getting up, his curtains are drawn until 1 o'clock, and they're furious about this. So now other Reform strategists will say, hang on a minute, that's a big bet we're taking there. What if we're about to alienate our core vote? Do we really want to stand as the grim reaper of benefits? Do we really want to stand as the pip snatchers at the next general election? So this is a gamble, but perhaps, again, let's give Jenrick credit here, perhaps he's thinking that Labour is going to have to reform PIP itself anyway, so it isn't really going to attack them for this. Now, right now, the Labour left will be itching to go after reform. You can just tell Louise Haig and all the others in the Labour left will be saying, look at this, they're about to take away benefits from all of our target voters. Let's denounce them for it right now. Reform, Jenrick, pip snatchers, let's go for it. But you can also imagine Andy Burnham thinking, hang on a minute,
that's walking into a trap.
Well, by the time Milburn's finished his review, maybe we're going to be wanting to reform, in inverted commas, PIP, never cutting it, always reforming it, and maybe we'd better be careful because we're in a big glass house here, so we better not throw many stones.
Look, Robert Jenrick, he also announced that people who are fit to work but unemployed for 12 months are going to have to do community service. That sounds quite David Cameron in a way.
Oh, it depends. If the community service thing comes around, remember the Tories were talking about deploying youth into the military at the last election. It always comes around, the kind of workhouse option. Now, I don't know. Look, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how many of these things are to be taken seriously. We do see Reform has promised a whole bunch of other things, including making employers responsible for the sickness benefit of their staff. Now, that, of course, foists huge costs onto employers. And we saw that when Rachel Reeves did that in the national insurance, that had a big effect on employment. So there are lots of interesting and quite bold radical changes here. But I saw earlier on Leila Cunningham, the Reform, one of its leading lights, was doing a phone-in on LBC where she had somebody calling in saying, look, you're going to take away my PIP, I've got cancer, how can you cope with this? And I thought to myself, well, they're going to get quite a lot of those sort of phone calls, and they'd better need an answer. I mean, the foreign national thing, this is a ruse, in my view, which doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and in a few days that will come away, and what we'll be left with is the Reform PIP abolition policy. Now, is Reform now ready to face down voters like we were in the call-in this morning, and it's going to get, from now on, every time they go to a town hall meeting, they're going to be asked about this? Because it's perhaps the hardest question in politics. Is Reform ready to answer it? Well, we've had half of the answer right now. I think a lot will depend on how well I can answer this problem, this question, in the next few weeks and months.
Fraser Nelson, thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you, Fraser.